What's for dinner?
It's going to be a while.
Does that mean that it's going to be like an hour, 2 hours? I'm starving. When are we going to eat now?
I'm always hungry.
Speaking of food, welcome back to another episode. Raised on Real Estate. Greg Angelo is here in the house along with Brock Zivan. It's been about a month or so, close to a month since we did our last podcast. We did 2 in April, and now we're back. And Brock, nice to have you back in the podcast booth.
What's up, buddy? How are you? Long time. I know we spring break, and I had kids soccer tournaments, and so it's been. And then you were on spring break as well too. So we had a lot going on these last couple of weeks.
We had the spring break, and now we're trying to break through this real estate market.
Yeah, puzzle piece this thing together. Talk about a shift from a month ago with the interest rates. That's for sure.
So I know last time we did our podcast, we talking about teams, team environment, working alone, working with other people. What does it look like? There are many different real estate groups out there, and people, they band together. People like to band together. Either they know people who they've grown up with, personalities, things like that. So maybe we can craft this podcast about, what does it look like to work in a team environment? What are the benefits, especially if someone is leading the team and you're getting, some sort of coaching involved with that, or anything else like leads. Maybe brand new agents are trying to figure out, like, well, how do I get started?
Yeah.
But we'd like to thank everyone for being back here to Raised on Real Estate. So we're out there all the time in our podcast. It's all over the place. There's a lot going on right now in the real estate market, especially and not just the real estate market, but everywhere. I could talk about almost any topic right now. Stock market, politics that's going on out there, which we probably won't talk about. Maybe I'll do that another time. I had to move some things around in my stock portfolio.
I'm sure those that are vested into it had to do a lot this last couple of days.
So let's focus this podcast on really about, so for you and your business, because I know that you've talked before, going back some years, that when you first got started in real estate, and then you were part of a Keller Williams team. Mm-hmm. And then at some point, you decided to either you wanted to, take a leadership role in running a team. So how did you go about try to make that decision?
Well, I've always been involved in some sort of leadership activity, whether being when I was a school teacher, I was a principal, or I was assistant principal, I was a head football coach. So leadership seemed to be always something on the forefront of what I was going to do, but I had no clear direction of what that actually looked like. And so I knew that was going to take shape. And when I got into real estate, I had a little vested interest in a small boutique here in the Lake Norman area that I had part ownership of. And then I wanted to go out my own. So I went out my own, but I always was scrapping at trying to figure things out because I was a school teacher. I mean, I didn't take any business classes. I didn't really know too much. So I crawled and scratched my way to being able to understand what leadership was. Still, I'm learning because there's so many different parts to owning your own business. And, I was at this event yesterday doing my little pickleball, and they were asking me well, what do you do? How'd you get off from work? Well, I'm my own boss. I kind of can set the hours. In that moment, that's actually the most vulnerable time, because when you have flexibility and you run your own show, you have nobody keeping you accountable, so you really can do whatever you want, whenever you want, and that's kind of dangerous for adults. It's we'd like to think we know what we're doing, but there's a reason why kids have a curriculum and a schedule for when they go to school, when the bell rings, when they do, because we do like routine, and adults don't do very well without routine. So that kind of came into play of being a leader. But here's the main thing that happened in my life where I had no choice but to coach at a very, very high level for survivorship. So I lost my license, and I lost it in 2019. And I went through 2 years of a court battle dealing with embezzlement, dealing with legalities, forensic attorneys. I was in the real estate commission in North Carolina, and it was very miserable. It was a very, very hard time in my life financially, marriage-wise, and everything else. So they revoked my license for a year. Suspended it, I should say. So they suspended my North Carolina state license. So that's very, very important to understand that they suspended just my North Carolina license. Well, when I went into the Keller Williams office and I sat in there with my broker in charge, the team leader, and the owner of Keller Williams, because everything's owned by a franchise, they asked me, what am I going to do? Are you going back to teaching? What are you going to do for income? And I said, thank you. And then I said, I'm going to coach like I've never coached before. And it reminded me of the video of the guy, what's his name, played for the Florida Gators, the quarterback, Tim Tebow. He lost against Georgia. And they came on and he had an announcement and he had to do his press release. And he said when he lost the game, I will work harder than you've ever seen anybody work. I will show up harder than I've ever done. I will be a leader like you've never seen before. They ended up winning the national championship that year. They never lost a game moving forward. I had that inside my head when I said to them, I will coach like I've never coached before, because the only way I could earn money was being a coach. And so literally that's when my coaching career, my coaching mentality took shape, was when you're really left with nothing. I couldn't sell real estate, so I only could be a coach, a consultant. I attached my license in South Carolina, and then that's how I got paid that year.
So the response that you gave these people was probably not the response that they were looking for, right? Because
No.
they probably met before they met with you. It's like, okay, we gotta sit down, we gotta talk to Brock. What are we gonna do with him? And then you're like, well, I don't know what you guys were thinking about and talking about in the back room, but I ain't doing that.
Oh, it was, and give full circle. Many people don't know this. So the team leader was Wendy Smith, and she was in that room, and now we're in a relationship 5 years later. But she tells me the back end story of like, they didn't know what they were going to do with you, Brock. They had no clue. Like, you went, nobody's lost the real estate license and still shows up every day. So they weren't too sure how to treat you, how to handle you. So when the owner said, I'll handle it, we kind of, the broker in charge and I were like, okay, good luck. Because they knew my personality. He didn't really know it too well. And so when he said the way he said it, and I didn't know the back end at the time, I was just like, thank you very much. That's all I needed you to say, because now I'm going to prove, just like I've had to majority of my life, is like, I'm going to prove you wrong. I don't know what it looks like yet. I don't know what that is, but I just know if I just show up, somehow, some way it'll work out. And for me, fortunately it did. And it's part of my story that I'm able to share today, but that's how really my team makeup took place, because at the time I had 4 people. And when it was all said and done with, I left with 18 people on my team without a license.
From someone who's listening here and not being on a team before, so what was attracting? What was the attraction to be part of your team?
I think they got really hands-on type of training more than anything else. Like, I was in your face and I shouldn't say in your face. It wasn't like a drill sergeant, but I was like, when you pay for coaching, okay, and you pay at a national level, you're paying anywhere from $1,000 a month to $2,000 a month, depending on your level. Some of them are $3,300. It really just depends. But for the most part, I can assure you, you don't get to see your coach every single day, and you don't get to have your coach around you 8 hours a day, 10 hours a day. And so one of the things with me was, I'm literally there physically around you, making phone calls. We had an ISA room, and we had 6 or 7 ISAs, and I was literally going in there coaching and training. So there was a lot of hands-on type of stuff. And back then, ISAs weren't as popular as they are today. And so they were just starting out, and I learned a lot from Jeff Glover. And the Glover U program taught me about ISAs, but we weren't doing a lot. There wasn't a lot in the Keller Williams office that you'd be like, let's just go to the ISA room. When I learned all about that, that's when I created the ISA room. I created a prospecting room, and it was new. So I think that played a lot in my favor, because when you have something new, it's like a new restaurant. Well, what do? Everybody goes to it. And I was fortunately kind of the talk of the town. And sometimes being bad talk is still good talk because I lost my license. And I had a lot of people talking about it because it's a small area, but I was public. It was public record. I had people posting on Facebook, all the people who hated me, and I was using that as strength. I was using that as motivation. And there was a lot of chatter about it. I would get in a lot of trouble because they would be like, Brock, how can you be doing this? You can't do this. You don't have a license. And I always knew. Well, I said to you guys in the beginning, I kept my South Carolina license. So I was part of the NAR. I was part of all that stuff. I just wasn't part of North Carolina.
When all that formed, did you see people who came into your team that, either didn't know you before or just got licensed? And did you see an improvement that was going on with them, and that being part of the team turned out to be a benefit for what they were doing in real estate from before, like what their numbers were? Like some of them maybe came in with, nothing. They never sold property before. They never did anything. Were you able to see sort of like an elevation of these people after they've been part of the team? Or did you see people just say, yeah, Brock, I don't know if this is going to work for me. I mean, you're asking me to do a lot of stuff. I don't know if I want to get up every morning and be on these calls, 8:00. Like, how did you handle those things?
So everybody thought I was going to be like the miracle man and I could save everybody. Just go to Brock's team and he'll take you to the next level. It doesn't work that way. I mean, it's a two-way street. I'm fortunate to say that a lot of the agents were successful. I would say 50% of them. Here's the pat on the back I will say to myself. At some point, it's not all about the numbers. It's about leadership. And we read it in our prayer group that we do each morning about John Maxwell and the leadership. And today we talked about loyalty. And you got to pour into them, because when they told me I had to leave Keller Williams, and I was like, excuse me? They're like, yeah. Like you said, they didn't know what to do with me. So the only thing you can do is they can kick me out. So they kicked me out of the Keller Williams office. And I said, well, what about my team? And they said, well, they can stay. You have to go, though. And I was like, Now remember, I coached my tail off to get to 18 people. I had 18 at the time. And that was my income because I couldn't survive by myself. The only way I could do it was coaching. And I said, okay. So we met, and where I'm going with this with the team and how the chemistry is built is sometimes it's not all about the numbers. A team like I taught at West Meck High School, so there was a lot of gangs. And you got the Bloods, you got the Crips, and you got these different gangs. And people are like, why are they in the gang? Because they feel secure. They feel welcome. They feel comfort. So whatever that might be, good or bad, it's a natural feeling to feel loved. Why do doctors tell you, nurses, like, love your children, hold on to them, skin to skin, like, give them that. And a lot of times, unfortunately, parents don't give that to their children. Well, I took that concept, I used the love language book. I learned everybody's love language. Long story short, I had to have a meeting off site, and I had to tell them that they let me go. And they all looked at me like, well, what are we going to do? I said, I have to go to a different company. And that's how I got to EXP. And they said, wait a minute, we have to leave? I said, no, you don't have to. You have a choice. So today, I don't want to put you on the spot, but we need to make some decisions on whether or not you want to go. And we can do it privately. So we went through and we had a conversation at a local bank, and they had a conference room. I almost cried at the time period it took place, because when we got all the numbers that came in, and I had 100% of the people say, we're going with you. Like, to pick up and leave to go to a different room, to pick up and leave and go down the street to a different restaurant, but to pick up and leave a company to come with me, I don't know how to classify or measure growth. But to me, that growth in leadership, in my mind, I have a gift to be able to help people. And I'm not going to be able to help every single person numbers-wise financially, because what you have to do in this market, in this real estate market, is, you're constantly on the phone, you're constantly talking to people. It's not easy. It's very, very challenging. But to be able to have the people on a loyalty perspective and saying like, hey, let's follow this guy. That was growth there. Team to me is about how you feel around others. Like every team is not going to make sense to you. It's all about personalities. It's all about the leadership. It's all about who's going to be with you when push comes to shove. When it comes time for like, hey, I need somebody to battle. Right now, Wendy and I have a really good relationship in our conversation. Like we have our own team within a team. And when conversations, like I'm not very good with sphere of influence to some capacity. She's really good at it. But I like confrontation for whatever rhyme or reason when the battle becomes a little intense. But that's why you like a team. I don't want to deal. I need Brock. This is why you're the leader. This is why I hire you. This is why I'm here. I need you to take this. I need you to run with this because right now I don't have enough oomph to be able to fight this, or I don't even know how to fight it. Mm-hmm. And so I think there's just different levels. So as far as like my job in my eyes, and that's how I became or becoming more of a motivational life coach in real estate and in your personal life, is because you got to be able to clean out your closet first of your personal life before you can start really getting out there. And that's one of the things that I've learned in reference to like, is a team for everybody? No, it's just, it all depends on each team has its own capacity, its own personality, but you have to have a strong leader.
So there's a couple of words that come to mind to me when you talk about teams and why people go to teams. And so two words come to mind. One is expectation, and then the other one is accountability. And so I think that from the outside, people are like, well, what are you going to do? You just got started. Should we join a team? And, what should we do? And it's like, yeah, man, I hear that when you get on a team, you're going to get all these leads and you're going to double your income. And, it's just a way to launch it off quickly. And so there's a level of expectation that people have. Like when I join this team, I'm already going to start seeing all the deals happening and all the money coming in right away. Mm-hmm. And then somebody says to you, well, you got to show up at 8 o'clock in the morning, like you were talking about the ISA, right? So, and I already know from, how Jeff used to do it, because I was from Michigan. Right. There was a lot of people who used to model what his practice was, because you had to get in on an ISA. You had to start making calls at 8 o'clock in the morning until noon.
Yep.
4 hours every day. And I think they would test you first to see whether or not, okay, he's here today. Is he going to come back tomorrow?
Right.
That was always the thing. Like, how long is it? Are they going to make it the week, quite frankly? Because it's tough. Even for you being in this business 15 years and you're making calls and you know how difficult it can be just if you're not in the right frame of mind to pick up and talk to someone today and try to get a listing. And it's difficult, even all the experience that you have. Let's talk a little bit about that mindset of expectation versus you have to bring something to the table.
Mm-hmm. So as far as it's a two-way street in my eyes of how things are, because one of the things that I've learned being going through this, and I've had many, many people on my team, and I used to keep that inside, or I didn't want to share it because that was dirty laundry. And part of my disc is I'm D and an I. So the influencers, we're emotional. We don't like to have people not like us. So when people say I'm moving in a different direction, I don't like you, you're the one that I'm not making any money because of you, I took it to heart majority of the time period until like the last 2 years, 2.5 years, where I'm just like, it's a two-way street. Like you're not putting in the energy and the effort. This isn't going to be, if it was easy, everybody would do it. I mean, I don't know exactly what the statistic is, but typically within the first 3 years of real estate in this real estate industry, it's either 88% or 91% of real estate agents just don't make it. They just don't have the oomph, like you said, is we can do the calls maybe a day, 2 days, but you start doing 3, 4, 5. Oh, by the way, we need you to do it on Saturday because everybody's home. You get Sunday off. Well, you really should probably even do some calls on Sunday because some people are home. Wait a minute. I just thought I would just make a lot of money and sell homes. No, it just doesn't work that way. So the expectation now is I really try to set the tone, but I use the law of attraction where you're either attracted to my personality, you're attracted to my demeanor, you're attracted to my accountability, you're attracted to being on call, you're attracted to do different things, or you're not. Like, we meet one-on-one each month. We go over our goals. We go over what you got going on. We go over what you're doing. All these things take shape. And I pretty much know that within 3 months, if you're not making any money, 2 things are going to happen. You're going to work harder, or you're going to blame me for not being successful. I mean, that's really what it is. And it took me a while to be like, it's okay that if you want to blame me. I used to take it to heart. Now it's like, you know what, I don't know what else to tell you. If you don't want to review your scripts, do your role play 3 times a day, do your listing presentation practices, do your buyer consultation practices, do 4 open houses a month. Like, well, Brock, there's no open houses. We'll figure one out. Like, there's open houses. You can really do one if you really, really wanted to do one. You could really get better if you really practice. But you just don't want to, and you want it to be easy. So you go to a team that might give you leads. Well, if they give you leads, the Zillows, the Redfins, whatever different
Realtor.com.
Realtor.com, Facebook leads, the Google Analytical leads. I mean, you have them too. I mean, what's the percentage of them being successful of just Zillow leads?
What's the percentage of converting them?
Yeah.
It would depend on how many others are calling on that same lead. It could be 50-50.
Right. Other people are calling them.
Right.
Right.
You're not the only one.
And does it happen instantaneously? Like, hey, let's go look at some property today?
It can.
Right. And what is the percentage of that?
I don't know. It could be, you mean getting in the house and getting an offer off that lead right away?
Yeah.
Maybe 15%, 20%.
Yeah. It's very low to be able to have that. And some of these organic leads that you get, those paid per clicks, I mean, how much are those? I mean, how little of a percentage are those to be able to convert?
I mean, the thing of it is, if those pay-per-clicks is, you got to pick up the phone and you got to call them.
Right.
Say they're not going to call you. When you get the lead, it's like, oh, hey, Mr. Seller, thank you for calling. Did you get that lead? Yeah, I did. I want to know if you can sell my house. No, it doesn't happen.
Yep.
And so the fact is that you have to do the follow-up, and, because if you get the lead and you just let it sit there and you don't just look at it, it's not a lead.
Yep. And
it's
how many
just
times,
a number.
And what about the numbers that don't even work? Or they don't answer their phone? Or they never call you back? Because sometimes you get a lead and you send it to somebody and they'll be like, oh, I called them. Well, what happened? They didn't answer. Okay, what? Now what? But these are things that you got to coach and teach up people, because if not, that lead just goes out the window. And in majority of that's why, to me, FSBOs and expireds, even though they're a pain in the butt, but they're actually people, like, they've already tried to sell their house, or they put up a sign in front of their house and says they want to help. This market's very challenging now, but if you keep the routine, it's just a matter of time until the floodgates open up, until these things take place. I mean, when we were hitting it hard and the market was more balanced, I mean, we were carrying 25 to 30 listings a month. I mean, now we're barely able to hold 4 or 5 because of the market. But we're all in the same playing field, and the people who continue to go. But here's the accountability. When things are really tough, when things are more challenging, who's keeping you accountable to keep going, to keep you coming every single day, coming into the office every single day, doing the thing that you need to do every single day? And you need to have that. You need to have that motivation and drive. Like, I know every day you're coming in the office. So I can't even remotely think about, well, maybe I just won't. I mean, this is a funny thing to say. Maybe I'll sleep in. I mean, for those that know me, I think my sleeping in is 6 o'clock because I get up at 4:30, 4:35. So, like, there's no way that I'm sleeping in because I know there's accountability. I got to be here, but you need to be around that. If you're not around that, one of the great guys I was just talking to this morning, Justin Ford, and you know him, and we were just talking about mentorship. And I said, what do you do mentorship? Like, what does it look like to you? And he was kind of like, you know what, I'm exploring it, I'm starting it. And he's younger than me. And I said, I've learned that age is not an important ingredient anymore of the person. It's their value. And if you don't have value either in your leader, if you don't respect your leader, and if your leader is not leading, then it's just a matter of time until you're going to go in a different direction. But the key thing of the expectation is the other side of it, of the other side of the coin. You went on vacation, right, to the beach the other couple weeks ago.
Mm-hmm.
Share with me your thought, because I still know you, because you still push out energy and you still look at your phone, and it's hard. But I mean, talk to us a little bit about, because it's, as you being the agent and me being a team leader, talk about how it feels for you when you actually, hopefully able to feel like I don't have to work. Like I got somebody else who's helping me during this. I don't have to feel like I'm taking the full load of work and things are still moving. You get to see it, but you didn't have to be fully involved in it. How did that make you feel on the other side of the coin?
Well, it took me a number of years to realize that I can't do everything on my own.
Mm-hmm.
And so one of the biggest struggles I used to deal with was control. And even, like all of my stuff, I always had to have my hand into something. It's like I had to know exactly what was going on in every deal all the time and all of that. So it was kind of hard for me to sort of like distance myself when I know something's going to happen if I'm not involved, right? Because I can fix it, or if there's a problem, I can stop it from happening. So part of that was control. But then I think that once that I got onto like coming down here to North Carolina, the real estate market is much different. One of the things that I've learned that I've grown into, and that a lot of it has to do with, listening to you, and so how you coach and things like that, and then also mirror, because you would say, and you have a lot more business going on than probably most of the people in the team, and you'd be like, well, I'm shutting it off now. This is what I'm going to shut it off, and if you want to talk to me, I'm going to turn a light switch on at this time tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
So I had to look at that and know that when you did that nothing, major problematic happened
Right.
between, the 6 hours or 7 hours.
When the lights are off, the world still happened and nothing fell apart.
Right.
Yeah.
So it was like, so it'll be okay.
Mm-hmm.
And so, but then the other thing is about trust, right? Which is also another important factor in being in a team is trust. You're not always going to get the same mind-like people, but I think trust is important to know, like when you hand something off, that that person's going to pick that up and carry it for you. And so I think that for me, part of it was to accept, be more trusting with people as well in the work environment. And so when we were down in Myrtle Beach, I wasn't stressed out that the things that we were going on weren't going to be taking place, because we knew that either you were going to handle it or someone else in our team, we could reach out to them, like someone who we just picked up these clients who had all these homes that they wanted to see. Mm-hmm. Right? It was like I'm in Myrtle Beach and there's like, it's 7:20 in the morning and there's like 5 properties. It's like, when can we go see those? And you're in Myrtle Beach. It's like, okay. So then we're like, well, we'll reach out to our other team member, Pamela.
Yep.
And Pamela's like, I'll take care of that. So it's really good to have that, Otherwise, what are you going to do? Then you can never you can never take a vacation if you're always going to be concerned that nothing is going to get done. I think for me.
And then you dive deeper just because I think that's a very important point there. Even what happens is not only do you're like, well, what am I going to do? But then your personality changes. And I remember this happened to me, and it affected my marriage because I'm by myself. I would get stressed about it. And now learning a little bit more about my body, that anxiety would start to come into play. And then it would be like, oh my God, I got this deal. I got to figure this thing out. I don't know, how am I going to do this? Honey, I'll be right back. And now I'm trying to like do work without her knowing, because I have to try to answer this text message. I do this and I don't know who else to go to, and I don't have this. So all these things start to come in, and then it affects your personal life. And so that's why to me, I like to leverage as much as I possibly can anymore. But like, I think you nailed it in the head, where it's like, it's hard to let go, especially if that's your personality, and letting go is just not something that comes natural, especially if you have a D part of your personality, because you want to hold on to everything. And then for me, it was my ego. Like, nobody else is going to do it the way Brock's going to do it. Like, nobody else is going to be as good as me. When really, majority of the people are probably better than me. But in my head, I'm thinking I'm the best at it. And when I started to kind of peel the onion back, it started to make more sense to me that when you and I work, I don't even worry about that. Like when you go show property, I don't worry about a single thing. The only time I worry is if you call me and I'm like, uh-oh, what happened? Because then I'm like, something serious. But like, I just think of dealing with Andrea and Greg. I mean, you were showing property, you were doing everything else. It was pretty much a done deal, and it was like smooth because the trust is there. It takes time to get to that point, but when you're there at it, it's like, okay, I get it. This makes perfect sense.
Right. Like, are you at the property? Can you get into the property?
Right.
Things like that.
Right.
And so there's all those things. And that's, part of that is control. And it is difficult to release that. And even today, I still dealt with that in that one deal that I had on the water when the seller was getting out. It's like I was probably more controlling about the fact of that he knew he had to get out in a certain time. I wanted to make sure he had to get out in a certain time. But back in my mind is like, it's like Big Brother. I think I'm like, I just need to step away because he's going to get out. The moving truck is going to come. Everything's going to be fine. And then my other concern was, and I told you that, I'm going to get a call from this agent because this one, she's, I'm going to get a call. We were over at the property. We did a walkthrough and this is here and this is that. And why is this? And so I was waiting for that phone call. I really was on that weekend. That's what I was thinking about. I'm like, why am I thinking about this?
Right.
And so Sunday comes to the walkthrough and my phone ain't ringing.
Yeah. I remember you telling me, you're like, nobody called me yesterday. Nothing. I guess everything went well. Nobody called me. And I was like, I don't know, maybe there's that side of it that everything did go well.
And then I'm like, well, it's probably a Sunday and she doesn't want to call. Right. So Monday, I know, and Monday at 8 o'clock, I'm going to be getting a phone call like, we went through the walkthrough. I didn't want to call you because it was Sunday. But no, that didn't happen either. In fact, I haven't heard a word. And it's over with. We're going to try to keep this one tied up on time. But here's what's one of the things about accountability. Two things that were interesting when you talked about time and letting that time go. So my son, Isaac, he was in the car. My wife picked him up from school, and he, however they do it on a Bluetooth, called my phone, right? So my phone goes into my voicemail message, and then in there it says, if you're getting this call after 8 o'clock,
right.
I'll get back to you the next day.
Right. Yep.
My wife, Val, she gets onto the phone, and Isaac's crying. He goes, Daddy, you can't talk to me until tomorrow morning. It's like you told me on the phone, like you said, I'm not taking your call, and he's crying.
Yeah.
So I had to explain to him that, it was my voice messages. It was really funny. Because what is the reaction when someone calls you and it's like, well, you mean tell me I can't call you? You aren't going to hear from you until tomorrow at 8 o'clock? Well, that's unless the house is burning down.
Right.
Then what's the point, right?
Mm-hmm.
But the other thing is that I was actually looking at my son's curriculum for his school day from the moment he gets there all the way through the end. So it's from 7:15 to like 7:15 to 7:45. It's like get into class. So all the way to 2:20 in the afternoon, every 15 minutes or 30 minutes, there's something that him and his class, his students are doing. It's not like you come in at 8:20 and then and then at 2:20, it's like there's a big void in between. There's like nothing written there. I'm looking at his schedule. I'm like, this kid is like, I mean, can you imagine that? 8:15 to 8:20, you got to call 14 FSBOs. From 8:30 to 8:45, you got to call expireds. I mean, who has a list like that? And should we have a list like that?
Well, I mean,
the answer is yes.
I mean, it's funny because you can go to my desk right now and you guys hear my team call. Like, you guys hear, like, this is what I do. This is what I got going on. I go from here to go to here. I mean, you just said it. Like, hey, we got a couple more minutes. And I was like, yeah, I gotta be out of here by 12 because I gotta have a call at 12:15 and then I gotta have a lunch at 12:30 that's gonna go to 1:45 and I got an agent call at 2. So sometimes I break it up in 15-minute increments. So let me explain something though. That process in my head did not happen overnight. It took a long period of time. I coach a team down in Florida and I talked to a team leader down there and we had a conversation. I have my calendar in 2 spots. I have it on my Google Calendar and I also have it on a written calendar. But it's taken me a long time to do that. But I learned because I was a school teacher. And if you actually, I wish I still had them, but if you looked at when I coached football, my practice schedule was broken down for water was going to be 5 minutes. I might be doing what we called a Pascal type of play where we did 7-on-7 for 15 minutes. I'd rep certain plays during that time period. I'd only want to see a bunch formation with a trip side that I want these plays here and I want to run this defense because I got to work on this. Like everything was broken down. And I guarantee if you talk to head coaches across this country, their practice schedule is broken down the same way. But for whatever reason, kids in high school and college, it starts to get that flexibility because you get to choose whether or not you got to go to class. Then you have certain classes that have pass fail. Then you know how much attendance you need to be there before that failing grade starts. And it starts in college. And I explored this because I was like, when did this whole transition take place? But you said it specifically correct. It is. We should be doing it every single day. You should know who you're calling, what you're doing. And then at the end of my day, it actually has a score. And it gives me a grade out of a 10. And I have to grade myself. And I don't think I've gotten above a 6.5 since I've been doing it. But I'm a little hard on myself because I want to get 100%. And I've realized that I'm not going to get 100% of every stupid thing that I put in there because I've had my page filled out completely. Like one of them is the whiteboard. I'm supposed to be updating the whiteboard. And I still haven't updated the whiteboard because then it becomes priority of what's important to you. And we always put the least important down at the bottom, or we put the least amount of effort and work goes on top because we don't want to do it. The easy stuff always goes on top. The hard stuff always goes at the bottom. But somebody should be looking at your calendar. You should have an accountability partner. I'd say, like, all right, Greg, who's your accountability partner? So Pamela on our team sends me her calendar every single morning between 5:15 and 5:30 in the morning. And she has it broken down, literally in 30-minute increments because time management's something. But it's important for those on this call that want to have that, send us a message. I have no problem with doing it. It takes me about 2 seconds. It keeps me accountable in the morning because I got to respond. So I got to make sure I'm up.
Absolutely. And I think that the other point, and then we could probably move this again to another podcast and bring it up, talk a little bit more deeper on being in teams and, you know, who you're following, because a lot of that has to do with who you follow in your team and whether or not you respect the person that's in your team. Because even when I was in Michigan, there were there were some broker in charges. We didn't really call them that. They were like, you know, because they were sort of like the franchise owner. Mm-hmm. But they were responsible for the other agents that were in there. And a lot of times they were never there. Mm-hmm. Right. And so people were always like, well, who do we go to? Who do we go to? You know, we have questions. And so sometimes you get to the point of, you know, we can talk about this in a deeper level is like person that you're going to, or you've got to have something that gravitates you, like you said, attraction, that you feel that you're getting a benefit from, other than the fact that they're just going to take a percentage of your income just because you're on the team and you never see them or never hear from them. I think it's important for, like you said, leadership. Mm-hmm. And then from the person who is receiving that, even though there's an expectation, but I think that people still have to work, they still have to do the effort as well. But I think a lot of it has to do with the leadership.
Oh, 100%. And it's not so much see it, they have to feel it. They have to feel like, I mean, there's many times you told me, like, Brock, you look a little tired. And I'm like, I am very tired. Like, I'm exhausted right now. Like, kid's been up, I'm trying to do this, work's a little crazy. I'm doing it. But I love that I can be in front of you and you say you look tired. Because if I'm not here, you don't know if I look tired. And I still show up every single day, no matter how tired I am or what I got going on. It's like, I just got to show up. I got to do it. Like this morning, going to the gym, I knew I had prayer call at 7:30. I knew I had, and on prayer call days, when I do back-to-back calls, I don't have as much time. But I would be damned if I'm not going to get my walk or my run in or my workout in. So I was like, okay, I don't really like going for runs. But I was like, okay, since I only have 20 minutes, I'm going to put myself through a rigorous run to be able to say, okay, you didn't get your full workout in, but you got to run in, and a run's not what you really like, but you did it anyways. And I ran up and down the hills through my path and came all the way over here, and my legs right now are hurting me from doing it, and they're sore. But I knew I had to do it because if you went and looked at my calendar or my schedule, it says workout. And I don't want you to come look at, like in my brain, I don't want you to come to my schedule like, did you work out today? And I have to say no to you. And that drives me. You're like, I don't really care, Brock. But that's the difference between, I think, people that want to take it to the next level is they care when nobody's around. And I think that's the most important thing. There's many times you come in this office here and there's nobody here. But you show up, you do what you're supposed to do, you make your phone calls, nobody really cares. But you know what? You show up and you do it because there's going to be that one call that you're going to get that's going to make, and somebody's going to say, well, Greg, you're just lucky. I don't know. I didn't see too much luck happen on a Saturday afternoon when nobody else was around here.
Right.
So I think that's so true of just like having that accountability when nobody's around, but that mindset to be able to do it. But it starts with people that you need to have around you. That's my 2 cents.
Okay, good. So we're going to end it here, and then we can pick this up again on we can do a part 2.
And you know what the thing is, too, for those that listen to part 1, if you have questions for us, you want to ask more in-depth questions about teams, and you want to dive in a little bit more, like, let us know. Put comments in there, email us, text us, go on Facebook, find us. Put something in there that you want to ask a question of, like, what makes good team? Do I need to have leads? What should I be looking for? How many role plays should I do? You know, what are splits now? What do those look like? The market's changing. Should I just be as a buyer's agent? Should I be? I mean, these are all things that come into play when you're learning how to be on a team. And I can assure you, these next several years, our real estate industry is going to continue to shift. It's going to continue to churn. Industrial buyers and sellers are going to take more of the market share. They're not going to take all of it, but we're going to have to be prepared. And I think the individual agent, unless you're doing, I don't know, $20, $25 million, I don't know financially you're going to be able to afford it because these institutions are going to take over. That's my 2 cents.
Yeah. The other thing is, too, is that you can also join us Monday through Friday from 8:15 to 8:30 on Mindset and Motivation with Brock Zivan. And so on the platform, on Buzzsprout, and also it doesn't matter where you go, if you're on iHeartRadio or Apple or what it is, we actually have the information for you. You can call. Doesn't matter where you're at. You can be in the West Coast. You can be in the East Coast. You can be down south. Doesn't matter. You call. We've got the number for you and then the code to get in. And you can join us and hear the stuff that Brock talks about. A lot of the stuff that's on this, that we talked about on this podcast, is on that call. And then we have other people. We have role plays. There's people around the country who have questions about just what Brock was talking about in challenging markets in different states, because they're not all the same. I mean, the real estate market where you're at can be completely different where we are here in North Carolina. And you may trying to, like, how do I figure this out, which is a little bit different than what we're doing. And we can talk about that. And I think that's what's really cool about that. Part of that coaching, part of being part of a team. You can also be like an extension. You don't have to be part of, who we are right now with our team in North Carolina, but you can still be part of who we are on our morning calls, right?
Absolutely. And as well as, I mean, we're able to do that in our coaching and our organization. So if you are thinking about like, what should I do? Like, how do I affiliate? Because it's all about who you surround yourself with. We do have opportunities in different parts of the country. Greg's big into Michigan. So those that are listening out there, I mean, give him a call, reach out to him, have a conversation with him of what he's learning and what he's doing, because he gives you a different perspective as an agent on what he's doing. Being able, and maybe it's like, hey, I'm thinking about growing a team. Well, then I can have a conversation with you, or what to look for, or what Greg looks for in me. So use this as an opportunity, and we're willing to share. I mean, and just to warn you, we're pretty transparent.
That's right. Okay, well, we thank you all for being here for this podcast that we have, and appreciate you all. Brock said, leave us comments. You can text us. We have all that information on the platform, and you can find us out there. I want to thank everyone who's always been a part of our Raised on Real Estate family and in our community, and also those people that listen outside the United States. We thank you for all of that. It has been a gorgeous day right now. It is May 10th, and the weather down here is just absolutely beautiful. So it's cranking up. Hopefully it's nice where you're at too, and spring is blooming, and hopefully your real estate career is going really well, and that's what we're here for. We're here for you. So feel free to give us a shout out. We really appreciate it. And share our podcast as much as you can. For Brock Zivan, this is Greg Angelo, Raised on Real Estate. Appreciate you being here. We'll talk to you soon. Take care.